Hello, everyone. We have a special guest here. We have McKayla Hale, who is a EXP agent, real estate investor, does so many things that we're going to let her explain it. But thank you for joining us today. And McKayla, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so many things, you guys. Thanks for having me on. So like Jay said, I am a realtor with EXP. I am a real estate investor. I own over 100 properties across the country. Um, and that's a combination of short-term, long-term rentals. I manage my renovation projects that are going on, and that's one of my favorite things to do. And mom of identical twin boys. I own a chocolate company that is all drop ship. So we are right now in December in our busiest time of the year. And that company I've grown to basically run itself through systems and processes. And we have a 60,000 square foot kitchen in Savannah, Georgia. I live here in Florida in the Panhandle. Um, and that kitchen uses our recipes and, makes packages, ships all over the country, do a lot of, corporate gifts for Boeing company and other big companies and small, just mom and pop people ordering our chocolate. So, do that, grown that business to run itself. I think this year I outsourced the last like 2 years a lot of VA work, and that chocolate business alone has brought in over $250,000 this year. So that's a big accomplishment and like testament to trusting the process and outsourcing work that is not the highest and best use of your time, right? And and then just trying to apply those concepts to all the other projects I have going on as well. So I
So you,
think
you
that
don't
You
have,
really don't have
you don't
much
have
going on then at all.
yeah.
crazy. So
So, so how did this meeting happen? Jeff and I were, you were hosting a training class on real estate investing, and we were on there and we were like, wow, we need to talk to her. We're a strong believer that storytelling really kind of puts it in perspective for people to try to connect dots from taking information into action. And obviously you have been able to bridge that gap in your life to execute on your ideas and the information that was provided to you, however you received it. So
yeah,
you're an anomaly for sure. Like it doesn't happen very often that people execute on their ideas.
yeah,
So, Jeff and I would love to kind of like, we could focus. I know you're the MacGyver of basically everything going on from chocolate to real estate to everything, but we would like to like hear your story on, how did you get started in real estate investing? Like, how
sure.
did you, how did you take that leap of faith
Yeah.
to take action on that?
So, all right. Yeah, we'll just start from the beginning. So, I got married in like 2017, and Aaron was explosive ordnance disposal in the Army. So that's the military's bomb squad. And he deployed once to Iraq and then twice to Afghanistan. And on his last deployment, he was working on a roadside bomb, and that bomb detonated and blew up in his face. It broke every bone in his face, perforated his eardrums, cracked his skull in multiple places, and took his eyesight completely. So completely blind. And at that point, it took years through 56 surgeries and, lots of hospital stays to figure out, well, life as we knew it was over. And then
Mm,
we had to figure out, okay, so now what? What's next?
right,
And we were young. Retirement was certainly an option, but very lonely for both of us.
right.
And young, we were like, all right, well, we have to figure out something to do. And before Aaron was in Army, bomb squad. He was a chef in the Navy for 8 years, and he worked for the admiral on the Sixth Fleet and lived in Gaeta, Italy for a very long time, and was his personal chef. So Aaron knows cooking like muscle memory back of his hand, and he continues to cook, is the only cook. I never have to cook anything, thank God. And he loves to bake and do all the things. So after his injury in Afghanistan, 4 years after that, he contracted bacterial meningitis through the crack in his skull, and that left him completely deaf. So he had to get two cochlear implants, but only one actually worked. And it was devastating, because like he was learned how to be blind, was crushing it. He was running marathons, speaking all over the country, advocating for veterans organizations that we felt passionately about. And, him going deaf added a brand new complex issue to the whole situation that we thought, okay, he's getting good at being blind. And so now, like, his iPhone with accessibility tools built into the operating system, those didn't work because he couldn't hear. So the cochlear implant, now he can hear his phone again and all of that. But that was a very long process to get that. I would say he was completely deaf and completely blind, locked inside his body for 6 months. So the only way we could communicate, I would write in the palm of his hand, letter by letter, to explain anything that was going on around him, anything, an email that came in, like whatever it was. I was writing in the palm of his hand to communicate to him. And so that was a really, really dark time for him, really dark, challenging time for me. And it was around the holidays. It was actually like Thanksgiving time. And I was very concerned about his mental health. And I told his mom, like, we have to do something. Like, we need to invite literally everyone Aaron knows around the country to come to our house for Thanksgiving and be here. And knowing Aaron loves to cook, I was like, this is his mission. He's going to enjoy it. And whether he wants to do it or not, he's going to do it. And so I told him, and he was like, okay, here's everything you need to get from the store. And so I just started like writing as he was talking, like writing down everything we needed. So everybody came up, and as he was preparing for this Thanksgiving meal, he started making fudge. I had never made fudge before in my life, you guys. Okay. Like, not Willy Wonka over here. And it wasn't even on my radar. Didn't know people made that. Aaron started making it. He was mixing alcohol in there. He was like making all these flavor combinations, and it was piling up. So we decided, I was just giving it away to people. I was like, oh my God, please take some fudge. He's making so much of it. But it gave him a purpose.
Right.
He had a reason to get out of bed. And he was excited. It was probably the first time I saw a smile on his face in like 4 or 5 months. So I was like, all right, well, whatever we got to do to keep making fudge, like, I'm just going to buy Publix out of all of the chocolate morsels they have. And so anyway, people in the community started coming back to me and being like, hey, I'm having a baby shower. Can I please buy some of this fudge from you? I'm like, it's free. Like, just going to make it, gonna give it to you. They're like, no, really, like, we're going to pay for it. And so like after that first thing, I had more people asking for more. And so then I was like, well, I guess we need to like get boxes and like make a logo or something. And so I just started implementing, like, making a brand around this chocolate. And I've always been an entrepreneur, but like never started a business from the ground up before, especially in the food industry. So that had a whole massive learning curve for me in my growth and development as a business owner. And anyway, it took off. Within a year, we had Blue Buffalo, who sold to General Mills for $8 billion. They were one of our top clients. They bought $35,000 in chocolate from us in our first year. Boeing Company was a huge, huge client and still supports us. And so we do corporate gifts all over the country now, and we've grown to, a larger facility and kitchen. And that's really kind of the short story of it. But from there,
What is
Aaron,
it? What is it? What is it called?
it's eodfudge.com is our website, but it's Extraordinary Delights, or like a nod to explosive ordnance disposal.
We'll
So
definitely we'll put in the link
nothing.
Absolutely.
in
That's
the description.
Thanks.
incredible.
So from there, I'd say it was like our second holiday season. Aaron was asked to go on to Fox Business. So we flew to New York City. And within his like 10-minute interview with Liz Clayman, our website was just like crashing for hours because of all the people that went on there. But in 24 hours, our business made over $250,000.
Oh my God.
We realized that we had a tax problem at this point. So we had to make a business decision and like consulted with our CPA and all like our whole team.
Right.
And we quickly realized we needed to do a few things. One, we needed to buy a vehicle because I was also pregnant with twins and like we needed a new car, but we could do the write off the full depreciation of that vehicle in that tax year. So we did that. Second thing we had to do was we had to buy some real estate because it was either we had to spend this money, we had to write a check to Uncle Sam for the same amount. So we bought a piece of property that the chocolate company owns. And within, so that was kind of like how we got started with, and we had been dabbling in renovations like prior to that, but we were able to take a chunk and it was $60,000, y'all, like for the first property. So we're not talking like we had a windfall and like
Right.
a massive property. That's not the case because again, the chocolate company owns that money and we still had expenses, of course, like making the chocolate, shipping it out, all of that. So, so anyway, took $60,000 and from that property, we do the Burr method. And this is something I explained in our class that I taught a few weeks ago, but we
Did you know
ahead.
about that method when you were making the purchase, or it just so happened?
Yep, we knew about it. I mean, we both were consistently listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, and just absorbing all the education because there's so many ways to invest in real estate. Like, and I think it's really important that no matter, like, it's cool to be interested in investing in real estate, but it's important that you learn all the different methods or at least like have some awareness around them so you can niche down and get really specific on like, what's your buy box? My buy box now is very different from what it was when I first started. And that's cool. It's supposed to change.
Right.
Can we pretend people don't understand what a buy box is?
Yeah,
Can you
totally. Yes. Buy box is like these are the requirements for me to even consider or entertain or further look into a property. So for example, I live in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. My buy box now looks like I am not going farther to the west than Navarre. I am not going farther to the east than Panama City Beach. I'm not going farther north than Defuniak Springs or Crestview. And anything along the coastline, anything in that area is my buy box as long as it is a single family, a condo. I won't do a manufactured home or a trailer. And
is that because you don't own the property or you want to avoid HOAs?
Some of that, but mostly because of hurricanes and insurance and because that's just a real thing here. And,
Right.
And like, and just being like, what I want to do, which is short-term renting. Like my goal is to buy and hold those properties and short-term rent them. They're not as desirable for a short-term rental. So, but your buy box is going to look different than mine. And I also own properties outside of the state. So my buy box for those communities, I still have a buy box for up there. I'm still willing to buy something out of state. It's just that I'm very clear now on what that looks like.
How did you end up going to that's something I was very interested in, because a lot of the investors we deal with in our area, they're again, their buy box is small, right? They're looking for this county or that county, nowhere outside of it.
Yeah.
Single family, obviously multifamily, they'd love to have.
Yeah.
How'd you end up like
Out of
completely different
state.
parts of the country,
Yeah.
and what does that even look like for you to manage that?
Right. So my out of state, my first property, actually my first 57 properties were out of state. It was only recently that I started buying within the state of Florida where I live. And but my first few were in Aaron's hometown. It's where he grew up. He knows that community like the back of his hand. And I recommend y'all, if you are interested in buying something out of state, you need to have a network there.
Oh yeah.
And that can be created. Thank goodness for Facebook groups and all of that. And if you're willing to do your due diligence, meeting on Zoom, connecting, talking to their clients who they clean for or do handyman work for, like, just depends on your level of commitment to sifting through applicants or whatever you're needing. But it was his hometown. His mom still lives there. His brother still lives there. His mom is married to a contractor who is phenomenal, does amazing work. And we had done a few investments like where we put money, we were more like silent investors. We put money towards their renovation projects and then got a return on our investment. We had been dabbling in that for a few years and liked the work. So when we bought our first property, we just bought it up there, and your money goes so much further up there. So for us, $60,000, we bought a 4-bedroom house that, I mean, it was 100 years old and we basically rebuilt it, but that's like tuition money. And when I say that, I mean, like, you're going to make mistakes in this business. And to me, it's tuition. I have learned so many things that I wouldn't have learned had I not made those mistakes. So but anyway, we rebuilt that house, and by forcing appreciation into the house, by renovating it, we were able to turn around and cash out refinance and buy 2 other properties. So, it's.
I love the fact that you just said that your failures or your mess ups were tuition. Like, it's so true, right? Like that, I've done some things, I spent some money where you're like, man, what an idiot I was. And then you're like,
We've all done that
lesson
in
learned.
this business.
Yeah, but what an education, right? Because like
Right.
we won't be making that expensive mistake again.
No.
One of mine was buying a franchise. So that was I was paying 2 tuitions because I was in college at the time as well. So double whammy,
Yeah, that's
So,
rough.
yeah, it's good.
But yeah, so my bread and butter now though are short-term rentals, and we still have long-term rentals, and like they're good. They're low maintenance, like they don't require much because my process for long-term renters is so stringent. Like, you're going to be the best tenant ever because there's no way you're going to get past my stuff without, without me figuring out if you're a good tenant. And they're low maintenance. They're consistent money. It's fine. But my short-term rentals are making like 10 times more a month.
Right.
So it's like,
So what locations do you have the most of the short-term rentals, and what made you decide to go that route with those properties?
yeah, so that's a good question. So my first 2 short-term rentals are in Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
And the purchase price of the house wasn't that much. That we're talking under $100,000 for, 4-bedroom, 2-bath houses. And they did need full renovation, full disclosure, like they
Right.
needed that. But when I cash out refinance, you just keep rolling that money into the next deal, but they are making Like the ROI, return on investment, on these two properties is astounding, you guys. Like,
What is a number that you consistently, so what ROI percentage is in your buy box?
that's a really good question. I mean, obviously depends on where I am. So like my Florida short-term rentals are, incredible depending on the deal you can get and when you bought and things like that. But like consistently, I'm getting like 13 to 15% ROI on my properties.
Year over year?
What'd you say?
Year over year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then in some months and some years are certainly more or less. But yeah, consistently they're making good money. I mean, like in the month of December in Akron, Ohio, you guys, where I thought like, who goes there? I have no idea.
You said it, not me.
Yeah, like who? It was a legitimate thing for me. I had a problem with investing our money up there for a while. And then you learn your market. We have a lot of people traveling that want to see all the national parks. And Cuyahoga Valley National Park is in the backyard. So lots of people doing that. So Children's Hospital, Akron General, Cleveland Clinic, traveling nurses and doctors all the time, consistently. We have a lot of families because Akron University and then Kent State University, very close by. So graduation families, crazy rent out all my properties. And so like you start to learn like who's coming and staying and like what are these,
who are my clientele going to be and why are they here?
Yep. And so like month of December, we're like making 10 grand in one house.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So occupancy rate.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself covering the mortgage for like a month or two, or how many weeks out of the year do you have to cover?
Never. Never. Not once.
Interesting.
Wow. It's always
so you're booked almost every single month.
Yeah.
That's
the name of the game though is to stay on target with your contractor, because yes, there are coverage costs, right? You're holding costs between purchasing the home and closing on it and renovating.
So no, I was talking about,
you're talking about after.
Yeah, when you're up and running.
Yeah, I've never had to do it. Since it's been put on the market to be a short-term rental, I've never once had to come out of pocket and pay for my mortgage.
Wow.
That's and incredible. I think I have like 30 mortgages at this point. Like, I think
30 mortgages and a lot of chocolate. So you're combo. So I think that's one of my concerns. I'm like, hey, this property, I think this property has potential, but I'm like, man, I think it's going to be booked up, but what about, 1 or 2 down months? Like, am I going to have to cover that? And then it's just going to eat away at what I rented it for. So it's just like, that's a concern for me.
Where do you do your advertising for the short-term rentals?
I have never paid for advertising, but my marketing, I am pretty active on. So each one of my short-term rentals has their own Instagram, and I've made a Facebook page for both of them as well, but that's like a newer thing. I do have my properties on Airbnb, VRBO. I have them on TripAdvisor and booking.com, and but I have a travel manager, I think it's called a travel manager. I don't know. I have this like platform basically, that manages all the different, platforms for me. And that's super, super helpful. And by for me, I just mean that it's like all in one place. I manage everything.
Right. Is that a program that pulls?
Yeah. So it's called Lodgify. I should just say what it is. It's called Lodgify. And oh my gosh, I would love to walk you guys through it, but we don't have to do that. But it's like, I geek out over it. And I also have Logify connected to a program called Price Labs. And Price Labs does dynamic pricing for all the properties. And it basically, dynamic pricing, you do not want to have a rental that's just like, it is $92 a night to stay here from now until forever. It's like, that's silly because your community, like Taylor Swift's coming to town, y'all. Like,
Right.
every property is booked and for probably 5 to 10 times more than your nightly average rate. So,
Right.
you know, you have to stay on top of it, but it's not realistic for me as a multi-business owner to know exactly what's happening in Akron, Ohio every single day of the year.
It's
Okay.
impossible to know.
Community. It's
Yeah.
impossible. So that's why you would have a price, you know, manager basically. And this system uses AI technology. It's amazing to like know, they keep a pulse on your competition, on everything that's on Airbnb, VRBO. It like pulls all the data and is like, here's what your competitors are charging. Here's what, and it's very complex. Like there are so many rule sets that I've created over the years of like this price set overrides this one. And if this happens, so like if somebody books a weekend, I will offer them on the tail end of their reservation a discount. What do I just add on a day?
Right.
Can I make more money? Right.
Right.
And so certain things like that. But I have lots of systems that are just from messaging every single guest. So I don't have to do that every day. But it sounds like me. It was me who wrote all of the messaging, right? But I have it strategically planned to automatically send all the information, our rules, our check-in stuff, like checking in on them during their stay. And I read everything and I personally respond if it's something that is like requires, you know, a response. But it has taken a lot of the work out of it for me.
Sure.
So
I mean,
Awesome.
yeah, it definitely, I mean, definitely has to. I mean, and like you said, like trying to stay up on what's locally happening in your, you know, in your market or where your, you know, short-term rentals are. It's like that'd be a full-time job on its own.
it really would. Yeah.
Yeah.
So utilizing the tools that are available to you once you get to that point. I managed our first short-term rental without this system. But I did see a really big need for having a direct booking website. That was what started me down this path of searching, because you guys, you never want to put all of your eggs in one basket. That goes for everything. From what you're investing in, you know, I am not just in real estate investing, right? I have other investments, and you don't ever want to do that. And Airbnb, like only listing your booking on Airbnb, you're missing out on a ton of money. If you have one listing, like diversify, put your listing up on other platforms and connect your calendar. So it automatically, if somebody books on VRBO, my channel manager, that's what it's called, my channel manager blocks off my calendar. So it can't be booked on Airbnb or on any of the other booking websites. And Logify also allows me to have my own website, which I market the hell out of because it saves the booking, like my guest, a lot of money in fees and platform fees. Like Airbnb charges like something like 15% more money split between me and the guest just to book on their platform.
Yep.
Right.
So they save a lot of money, you know, if they book direct through me, but still have the same experience. So
That's amazing.
So, okay, so you also mentioned that you have created Facebook and Instagram accounts for your properties. Now, how are you using that?
yeah, so just making posts and collaborating and like connecting with community partners. So, I mean, like my favorite coffee shop that's right down the street in Akron from the properties, we're friends. I support, like, I'll get on there and just share their stuff, like what they're up to this weekend. There's a store that's walking distance from the house, and it's like this cute boutique where they sell local, like artisan products. And I share all their stuff. They're like hosting a cookie making like gingerbread making class this weekend. And so like I like to share stuff like that with my guests too, because when they're in town or they have kids and they're like, what do we do? It's really easy to send them in the direction of some of these community partners. So if you do have a rental, even if you don't live there, you have the gift of the internet, which is so powerful. And you can
Right.
make these really strategic, beautiful relationships with other like business owners in your community. And then they also have referred me a lot of business, just whether it's friends of theirs, family members, people looking for somewhere to stay last minute, or their other Airbnb was a bad experience. And they're like, we don't know where we're staying tonight because the hotels are sold out. And it's like, hey, like check with our friends. Here's their number, you know? So it's strategic to use social media to your advantage, even with a short-term rental. Like you are missing out on so much money if you are not, utilizing those free platforms.
Right. Amazing. So the process is like you guys, so the chocolate took off. You guys knew you had to do something with the money, otherwise Uncle Sam was going to get a nice check. So you realize like, hey, maybe we should do some real estate investing. The first investment was around 60 grand.
Mhm.
And then you, what did you have family or friends with pricing it out, the scope of work, the estimates, and like
Mhm.
I think that's a big fear factor for people because it can turn south really quick when it comes to
You gotta
contractors.
remember, we're in New Jersey and we don't trust people.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Not trusting people as your default in this industry is something that I am right there with you. And I have done a lot of these. And I'm
Yeah.
still to this day, right now, having issues with one of my contractors locally. See him almost every day.
Right.
So it is good to be clear.
Cautious, clear and
Right.
cautious. Yeah.
Have very clear expectations. I mean, I don't even work with a contractor unless they're willing to sign my contract, meaning my expectations, my procedures, how and when you are going to get paid on a job.
I love that.
And all of that is so important. And tuition, right? I only implemented those systems because I've been burned.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, you would ideally work with a realtor or find yourself an investor-friendly realtor. I know you guys are in New
Right.
Jersey. And I am down here in Florida. Obviously, we have a network of investor-friendly agents, but somebody who really knows the ins and outs and can guide you on the whole process and be willing and open to, whether it's a creative financing deal or, something so you can get your foot in the door and then work with who they suggest or who to inspect the property. So get a full inspection. My first property is not a good example because Aaron, who's blind, bought our first $60,000 property it was during a Christmas break. And he bought it on auction online. I hadn't even seen this property. Nobody had. And you can't even do an inspection, by the way, on
Yeah.
these.
Yep.
So when we talk about tuition, that's like next level, like,
Yeah.
but
You talk about feet to the fire. You're like, here we
yeah,
go. We gotta
like
figure
here we
this out.
go. Hope we're ready.
Yeah.
So don't do it that way. That's
Yeah.
my recommendation. But do get an inspection and negotiate. So many communities around the country right now are amazing for my buyers right now. My buyer investors, they're making out like bandits. I mean, they're able to ask for exactly what they need done, whether to buy the property, whether it's a concession, whether it's on price or anything, right? Or like, I need you guys to contribute to a new roof or whatever. So, so there's that. But if I were to start over, and let's just say I didn't have the chocolate company and I didn't have, $60,000 to start, I would strongly consider putting an ADU in my backyard or building an above the garage in-law suite at my own home. Because the barrier to entry there, you're not having to buy a whole new property. You're not having to come up with a down payment or build a structure or have money for a complete renovation in addition to buying a home, right? Because sometimes that is a barrier for folks, and I get it. I
So,
will look at what's possible.
so are you almost saying do force appreciation on your property and then pull the equity out and then go invest it?
Totally.
Mm.
Or if it doesn't add enough equity for you to do like a cash out refinance or a HELOC or something, like let's just say you have a mortgage on your home and already, but you do have space in the backyard or above your garage, and you can interview some contractors to like see what it would cost you to add something. And also, I'm not talking about something really big. I'm talking about like maybe a studio or like a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, like small space. Between Home Depot, Tractor Supply, and like these little tiny home people that you can find on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff. I am so passionate about like house hacking the properties that you already have. So if it was my own home and I had space in my backyard, obviously check with your county, check with your HOA if you have one, like all of the above, because you need to follow regulations, but like
especially septic system. If you get in the septic system realm,
yeah. I mean, make sure you're doing this legitimately. You do not want to have your HOA hating you.
I got this shed in the backyard that I'm renting out,
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, do a good job, do your due diligence everywhere. But I would absolutely add an ADU in my backyard and make it a separate entrance, like private from your house, you guys. Okay. There's so much, go on Pinterest. There's a million ways to make it separate. They have a separate entrance, and I would start stockpiling that money. Make it its own business, because it is, and you put it in a separate bank account. All of my properties have their own bank accounts. I do not commingle any funds at all. So all of that money goes in a separate bank account, and just start cash flowing that one short-term rental, but do an excellent job. If you are not good at design, find an interior designer in your community, for the love of God, please. Like, if it's not your forte, do not take it on yourself, because the short-term rental market is saturated. It's oversaturated right now. And you're having Airbnb hosts who are not able to make any money because they're doing a bad job. And it's not because they're bad people or like trying to like finagle some like scheme or something. It's just because their space is bad. They like got all their stuff at like a crappy thrift store, like IKEA, and it's just like yuck and thrown together and doesn't look right. You need to have an outstanding property for people to want to book there, and somewhere that feels like a really cool, even intimate, small experience. But like when they walk in, they're impressed, and it's all about photos as well. So it needs to be aesthetically beautiful on the internet. But that's where I would start, because that's like 30 grand. You can get the literally prefab sheds, and then take a talented, contractor who can like get in there and do some beauty work on this thing, and make it a really excellent space that you can work, you can make it work and start cash flowing. Then from there, you can take a few different routes to cash out refinance, get a HELOC, or if you have equity already. And if you don't, just stockpile that money. That's all you have to do. Just wait for that money to grow. So you have now a down payment for another property.
Yeah.
Do you have a minimum down payment that you like to put on all these properties? There's got to be a number that makes sense.
I mean, conventional loans, they'll take, sometimes if you find the right lender, they'll take as low as like 5, but usually it's 10, sometimes as much as 20 if you're right. If it's like, but you find the lenders you like to work with, and that can do what you need to do. But for a long time it was 20. They didn't even start like offering lower percentage rates on investment properties until more recently. So
Right.
I was always prepared to pay 20.
Mm.
But
Now,
if you do an excellent job at your short-term rental and you crush it and you're on social media and do all the things like that, and you provide guests with an amazing experience and you keep growing, you could be making 10 grand a month.
right.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that piles up quick.
Now, would you change, so all the different ways to invest in real estate, would you change anything now, or you, in regards to the Burr method or any other method, would you always do the Burr method moving forward?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it would.
hands down.
Yeah,
Okay.
it would. I would. I mean, and just because it's worked for me, it makes the most financial sense for me. And I think it also offers people who don't have a lot of money to start with the opportunity to start with a smaller seed. I call it
Yeah.
my seed money, right? And like you're starting with this seed money and then it grows over time over transactions. So it's awesome to start with very little and then renovate, cash out, refinance. And since you have forced appreciation into it, which is
Yeah.
that appreciation number, in an ideal world, and the way it's supposed to work, if you do your calculations and everything right, is like that money is more than what you actually put into the house. So now your house value is worth more. So now you get to take that extra money and have your renters pay your mortgage, and you get to roll that money that you made into the next deal and hopefully do a bigger project or maybe two, right?
So so that method is definitely going to help you leapfrog you to the next one, and with compounding, interest, where the other ones can kind of string you out to where you're too vulnerable, your cash flow is too thin, and you're trying to play catch up on an ROI on all your investments, to where, you get one good solid foundation like your seed, and that seed money can really leapfrog you
Yeah.
into 100 properties like you are right now.
Right. And the other thing too, like the Burr method allows for scalability, which is why I like it. My goal is to have lots and lots of properties. That's my goal. That might not be appetizing to some people, and that might not be your goal, which is totally okay too. Buying and it's just the other methods, they're not wrong and they're not bad. Of course, any investment method has its own risks and things to consider, but the other methods are just slower for scalability. If you wait for, let's say you buy a home and your goal is to just like renovate it and hold on to it for 2 years for appreciation, to like just regular appreciation of the market, to value your house at more, so now you can put it on the market and sell it, and you're talking a minimum of 2 years.
Right.
I'm talking a minimum of 6-8 weeks, or depending on my contractor, again, that's really important, but like I'm able to buy 10 properties a year or more depending on my appetite, and that, so I mean, it's scalability, and
Yeah.
it allows you to do it much faster. And there's tons of literature on it, you guys. So like if anybody listening is interested in the Burr method, like please just start researching it, because the information is everywhere on the Burr method. It's just BRRR, Burr method.
Mhm. Right. No, that's great. So what would you say uh was the biggest lesson you've ever learned from this process that changed the course of how you operated?
We're going there.
So
The biggest tuition, we would say. We're calling
tuition, don't buy properties on auction.
it. No,
Oh, it's like which horror story do I tell you?
so it's not always sunshine and rainbows, right?
I
Like,
know it's not.
right.
And do not get into this business thinking like, wow, like 10 grand a month sounds so exciting. Like we can totally do this. And you can,
It's the
but
same,
be
it's the
prepared.
same thing on like TLC and all these channels of
Yeah,
like
it's not
house
like that.
hunters are, listed or like all of these things. They paint this picture of just a false reality of how things operate. And it
Yes.
gets people in a lot of trouble, I think. I think it
Yeah,
gets
no,
people
I agree.
in
I agree
trouble.
100%. There's like, I have videos of myself from like buying a previously meth, it wasn't a meth lab, but meth heads owned it before. And like
It was a new
disgusting, you
business.
guys,
So is it,
disgusting, like
yeah.
health hazard. Shoveling. I was using a snow shovel to shovel their junk into garbage bags because they left the property that I bought requiring 9 30-yard dumpsters worth of shit that I had
Wow.
to personally. I did all the demo in that house. I did hire a few like day laborers to help me, but like I did it. And it is not always glamorous, but I will tell you that property, once it's done, I'm currently working on it. It's like my biggest project to date, but it's going to cash flow beautifully because I got it for an insane price from a wholesaler. And not all your best deals are going to be on the MLS, y'all, and rarely are they.
Mhm.
And so, but as a realtor, sometimes that's a hard thing for other realtors to hear, okay? Because like that's our bread and butter as a realtor, right? Like we want our clients to come from the MLS. And so, but I'm very transparent with my investors, like, hey, we're going to get on some wholesalers lists, all right? Because also as a realtor, I can work my commission into those deals.
Mhm.
I was going to ask you about that. Like that's something too, because there's going to be a
Absolutely.
lot of people that are in our industry that listen to this, and not everybody understands that you can do that.
Absolutely, you can. And the wholesalers want to work with y'all.
Right.
Mhm.
Like you guys have investors. If they're investors, they're looking for a deal. Okay. And you can absolutely work that commission in there. And they want to work with you. They'll say, hey, tell your client, like, and they'll be like my wholesaler that I work with and have bought several properties from. He's like, he's very transparent. His cut is $15,000. It's a flat fee on every
Mhm.
deal. It's like, okay, if you have a buyer, if you have an end buyer for this deal, like add your commission. What do you want? You want 4,000? You want 5,000? Like, what do you want for this deal? It's like, add it on there. That's what we're asking, So anyway, build some relationships with some wholesalers is my recommendation. They're awesome, you guys. Like,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
bought this property for like which is insane. Here in
yeah.
Florida, which you guys are in New Jersey, so like you also have like very expensive coastal home. Like you know the deal,
Oh
whether
yeah.
it's near the
Ridiculous.
city or near the beaches, like
Yep.
So here in Florida, like where we live, I mean, there's homes 5 minutes from here that are $25 million from my house. So
Right.
like they're insane. And this house is 45 minutes north, so like 40 minutes north, so you can be to the beaches in
Mhm.
like 40 minutes. And it's like this downtown-ish kind of community. It's not a downtown, they have a downtown, but it's like old, and it's cute. I really love it.
Yeah.
And this house sits on 2 acres. You can't buy 2 acres down here at the
Not in
beach.
Florida.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna do that. It's expensive. And so 2 acres, it looks from the front of the house like a 1-story brick house.
Mhm.
It's actually 2 completely separate units joined by a screened in massive pool, the biggest residential pool I've ever seen in my life. It's like over 10 feet deep. They don't make pools like that anymore.
Interesting.
And like, so 2 completely separate units, a separate building, which is a 5-bay car garage.
Wow.
And
What a unique property.
yeah, $140,000.
Wow.
So that's my project right now that I'm working on. And
What
it's
do you
coming
what do you estimate your after repair value to be on that property?
over $1 million.
Yeah, easy.
Other properties nearby, because there's like this lake like across the road. And there's homes that they're not even the hardest part is the comps, right? So like the homes that are going for 8, 9, $1 million are 4 to 5 bedroom homes. They're nicer,
Right.
but like I have a gem of a like multi-generational compound thing going on. And
Yeah.
so, you know, it'll be interesting to see what it appraises at, but I'm confident that I will be able from this deal when I cash out refinance to do either the biggest beachfront deal that I've ever done or multiple other investment properties and, you know, spread that money out. So the deals are worth finding if you're willing to look and look in places you wouldn't normally be looking
Right.
for them.
Right.
Yeah. Where did you find the confidence to trust the numbers?
I felt very so like growing up, I had like not a healthy relationship with money. My mom growing up was always stressed about money. And I just didn't have a healthy relationship with it. So it carried over into my adult life. Like our money mindset more often than not stems from our childhood and what money was like and that conversation was like growing up.
Of
And
course.
so for me, spending this kind of money on a property that was a shithole was very scary for me. I felt like we were throwing our money away. And I didn't know how it worked in the beginning. And I was like, I don't know how this is going to happen. And it brought up it was a lot of tension in my marriage from it. And so the only thing that built my confidence around my decision making were the numbers,
Right.
were the calculations, because if I could see on the computer that, okay, these are my comps before I even put an offer in, you guys, like there are so many things. There's a checklist that I look at of like, okay, first we have to do this and evaluate this. And then like, what's it going to cost to rehab it? I mean, I'm not even putting in an offer until my contractor has toured the property with me, whether it's on FaceTime or with a trusted person, right? That's involved on my team. So, you have to, you have to be able to look at things before you even put in an offer, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm willing to pay for your property based on what it's going to cost me to renovate it. If you don't know what it's going to cost you to renovate, and you're just like, well, this is a great deal. It might be the worst deal ever because you have foundation problems or a roof problem or, you know, rats or mold. I mean, and none of that stuff scares me. I've bought houses with all of the above. It matters what you get the house for based on your other calculations.
Right.
So doing your due diligence is super important. But the only thing that gave me confidence to make an investment and feel really good about it is knowing my numbers.
Sure. And then like obviously you're pulling the data, you're running your numbers, and then you're like, because I do it, like I'm looking at the numbers and I'm like, is that real? Like, is this it makes sense. It looks right, right? But then you put it, then you're like, okay, is it real life too? You're like, all right, when these things start happening, are we going to hit these numbers? And that's it's that's the leap. I think that's the leap of faith. Like, all right, this makes sense on paper, but when I plug this into reality, does it make sense?
Right.
Well, I think the biggest enemy for a lot of people, especially in our business, doing what we do in real estate, is analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Like you overanalyze it to a fault,
Mm-hmm.
and that just makes you stop taking action.
It's true. It's true that that can absolutely slow you down in your progress if you. And you know, there have been so many times that I have looked to Aaron for reassurance, like, and been like,
Sure.
I feel really scared about this deal. I don't know how we're going to pull this off. Or what if worst case scenario happens? Because that's where my mind goes. Like,
Right.
what if we're stuck carrying this note for some reason? You know, how are we going to make that happen? And and so like having somebody in your corner that is trusted, that can really, they know the ins and outs of the same deal, you know, and they're able to say, okay, if this happens, here's what we're going to do. Or if this happens, here's what we're going to do. Aaron does not have a money scarcity mindset. He's just like, it's a tool. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, more money comes and it goes. great.
That's a
And
great way to look at it. Like your ass. It's a tool. It's a tool to
And it
move.
really is. I mean, that's, yeah.
So, but
but it has taken me a very long time to be able to agree with that. And I have personally had to do a lot of self-development to be in this business,
Mhm.
and work on my money mindset and how I
Sure.
view it and treat it. And
I mean, it's human nature, and I mean, it's deep seated in every individual because like we are wired to go negative for for safety reasons like that are be skeptic of everything to keep be alive, to stay alive. It's just we it's the individuals who choose to push against that, and then like you said, like here are the numbers, all right, everything inside of me is telling me you're an idiot, don't do this is too risky, but
yeah,
like numbers are make sense,
yeah.
and then I think it's only natural that you're just constant second guessing, even when you're pushing every single day, and
Mhm.
in the wrong direction. Like you mentally sometimes get burnt out and weak, and you kind of pause and like, hey, am I doing the right thing here? Like, am
Totally,
I missing something? Like,
totally.
and I'm an idiot or what? And then you're like, and then it works out, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. It's just like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
huge.
And I think it's good to be appropriately cautious and analyze and look at your numbers. I mean, you have to be able to understand the why behind all the numbers and how that impacts your decision making. But like for example, like I Aaron and I were on like some podcast interview, and they had asked Aaron, at what point did you realize that you had become a millionaire? Like at what point? And he like, and I didn't even realize until he started responding that we had even been able to make that much money. Okay. So it wasn't even on my radar. I wasn't looking at like our
Right.
QuickBooks or anything like that. Um, and he said that it was when we were like so stressed out about this one deal that we had going on. And, it was, we were having a lot of conversations about it. I was really stressed for the right reasons. I was concerned about this project and the direction it was going. Um, and it was like he had to really take a deep dive into some of the numbers of the business and really look at our income and our cash flow and things like that. And it's like, it's such a bizarre thing because you're so concerned about money,
Mhm.
but you're also making
Yeah.
money because you've built the business to grow and scale. And so, but even when you realize it, you're like, I'm already 5 steps. This is no longer like, this isn't good enough. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? It's such a mindset
Yeah. You're
thing.
almost, yeah, you're so much like deep trenched in it, like you're in it, like so it's not
You
like
think you're not going to be able to like feed your family, but it's like on paper, you're like, you are fine. You're
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Like you're going to be all right. And that's like what Aaron has to sometimes remind me is like,
sure.
we're okay. You're not like 12 years old and not able to eat. Okay. Like that is not the situation, even though inside the anxiety feels like that.
For sure.
But it's not the case. Um, so it's just like a really weird mind.
Perspective,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and keeping things in check. A very, yeah, it's tough. And then a lot of times you're like, I've done all the research, I've done everything I possibly can that yeah, I'm just gonna go for it.
Yes.
I gotta trust myself. Uh
Yes. 1,000,000%.
and I've done that a number of times. I'm like, what you because you always ask, what am I missing? Am I missing something?
And it's
I,
nothing.
and you always, as an entrepreneur or real estate or business partner or anything, like I think the biggest problem with is that people allow their egos to get in the way and they don't ask for help, or they don't ask for a perspective or, a feedback. Like I'm
Yeah.
always like, feedback, give it to me. I don't like, you're not hurting my feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
Trust me. Get like because I'm always like sending like, tapping people on the shoulder. Hey, what am I missing? Do you see an angle that I don't see? Um,
Which is such a good quality in a leader, business partner. Like That's such an underrated characteristic that I don't think enough leaders are doing in their businesses.
Mm.
Like, feedback is so essential. It's so essential for growth and also to create that culture. So like if you don't have, because it takes a lot of trust for you to say that to somebody, but then even more trust for them to give it, to tell you maybe what you don't want to hear, and
Right.
to tell you that you've been showing up shitty, or that you've been had a bad attitude, or they don't enjoy working with you in this aspect because of how you're like hardwired to respond, or whatever. Fill in the blank with whatever, whether it's your marriage, your business relationships, like anything. It takes so much relationship building to create that culture of feedback where it's welcomed and it's going to be well received, and also that you're grateful for it. Like, wow, I can't believe that I have missed that, and like that must make sense why you feel that way. Like, I've been showing up this way for you, you know. And so I think that's an amazing.
Yeah. I think because I think people who don't do that or don't make themselves vulnerable to that, they're stunting their own growth. Very, like, you are basically pumping the brakes and you're slowing yourself down because one, you have an ego problem, and then two is that you're insecure. Like, you got to be open to perspective. You don't have to take all the information in it and use it, but
Yeah,
you're just bouncing, like you're like, hey, I have this idea. I think it's a good idea. What do you see guys see that I don't see? It's almost like testing your idea. You're like, poke holes in this thing. You're like,
yeah,
let's see. Let's poke holes. If it doesn't work, we'll throw it to the side. If it does work, we'll keep going.
yeah, 100%.
I know we've been on here for a while. I think there's going to be a part two. I think Jeff and I are going to definitely have some more, questions for you, and we would love to have you, back on and continuously, because it is a journey, right? It's a story. There's going to be other hurdles. We would love to hear how the wholesale project slash meth lab is going.
Can't
Um,
wait to hear about the meth lab.
can't wait to hear
They're
about
my favorite. I'm a retired cop, so those are my
Oh
favorite.
my gosh, I will send you, I will spam you all of the
Please
progress
do.
videos of
Please
of
do.
the property.
I love it. I love seeing success like this. The
Yeah,
story is truly amazing. I couldn't be happier for you guys for the
Oh,
success you've had. It's inspiring to say the least.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, such a good person. The the knowledge, the experiences, and the transparency and the openness. I mean, it just there's definitely no such thing as a scarcity mindset when it comes to you. And I think that's why you know, we connected on different calls and stuff like that. And then when you jumped on that call and you taught that class, I was like, yeah, we got it. We got to talk for
Yeah.
sure.
yeah. Hey, happy to do it. Love chatting with you guys. We could probably be on this call all day and
Right.
we wouldn't run out of things to chat about. So happy to do a part 2 and 10 and whatever. Like, we can
Absolutely.
Yeah,
keep a call going, just of talking about investments, and also like for realtors who are looking, maybe you're not considering the EXP model, fine, but like we could talk an entire conversation about what the EXP model has done for my investing business. Y'all,
yeah,
I didn't get my real estate license until years after I was actively investing in real estate. And it was to represent myself on my end of the deals, period.
that's a
That's what,
great. Gosh, we should have asked you that question, to be honest with you.
yeah, I know. I was like, why didn't I talk about
I'm on this call with two idiots. I didn't even ask me the typical question.
oh, oh my gosh. No, we just have had so many other things to talk about, but that is something that let's just put it on the calendar.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I chose the EXP model to help me grow my portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if any, like, we can, the model, I think the bread and butter is obviously your real estate and investing, but like all three of us on this call know the model ins and outs and how it can compare and contrast to others and other copycats out there. And I think the biggest problem with what's going on in the industry right now, there's a lot of false information to distract people and slow the bleed down from traditional models and corporations in this industry. And it's only the agent's the only one suffering, the agent and their family, because they're putting the majority of the time the agent's putting more money in the corporate's hands than they are in their family's bank account. If that's if somebody wanted the cliff notes of it, that's it. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah.
it,
And then you
I
take that
am
money that
deeply passionate about,
I get fired up.
especially women. Oh, I get so fired up about like women in this industry and moms working their butts off to be a real estate agent, a realtor, and they're giving away more than half of their paycheck when they have done the whole deal alone.
Mhm.
we've
Get
had,
fired
we
up.
could go on all day about this. I mean, we could take some of the agents that we've spoken to and broken numbers down. We could
Yeah.
take the money they leave on the table and buy that property for investing. Plain and simple.
A million.
We could have bought that meth lab.
You could
Easily
have.
could have brought,
It could
bought
have
that
been
meth lab.
yours.
Just in 1 year of leave what they left behind, could have bought that meth lab.
Yeah.
Hey, it is so true. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a conversation that people need to hear. And I think that
Yeah.
that should be our next call.
Agreed,
Sure.
100%.
Cool.
McKayla, thank you
I'm
so
gonna order
much.
some chocolate.
Yeah, we're definitely
I'll
gonna
ship
order.
you guys some. 'Tis the season. Just shoot me your address, not your email.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Um,
McKayla, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
You're
We'll
welcome.
definitely,
Thanks
for
for
sure.
having me. Yep, thanks for having me, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. And have a very Merry Christmas. Enjoy the holidays with your family.
Same to you guys.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.